welcome back to the Boytime channel. Today, this is the start of a new series. You'll notice it is just me today. This will be a solo series that I'm taking on, and this will be a kind of full discography review, re-listen of Phil Elverum's catalog throughout the microphones and Mount Eerie. The reason this is a solo series is a couple of reasons. I don't think Jerry was too fond of the two microphones albums that we did do on the channel, so I'm not going to make him come through for an entire thing here. But I've been wanting to do a more put together, produced, higher quality, higher editing style discography video on the channel. We've done some discographies before. We've done Bon Iver and Fleet Foxes. Those are just kind of reaction videos that we put out every couple of months. I want this to be a more focused, organized collection of a whole discography. So last year I went through the entire Phil Elverum discography. That kind of was sparked from our Glow Part 2 reaction, I think in late 2023. Absolutely fell in love with that album. I found it very hard to crack for a while, but once it clicked, I was so in, enough so that I pretty much went through the entire catalog and just absolutely adored a lot of the stuff that he's done. After doing the discography, I had the idea where I wanted to do a deep dive video on it. So I started writing a video essay style video that would go through his entire discography, but it wasn't feeling natural. I didn't really like the way it was turning out. It didn't feel natural as in my style, especially when it comes to Phil's music. I feel like he's a little bit more scrapbooky and open and flowy with the way he works. So I'm going to try to match that because I kind of fit that style as well. So in this series, we're going to go through every single Phil Elverum album. I'm going to re-listen to them, and I'm also going to give some brief context and other things before we dive into it. They will not be full reaction videos just because that will take a long time. It would be like 20-something episodes, and that's just too long. It's too much. So I'll have kind of condensed thoughts, and I'll be splicing in clips of me talking about my first listens that I documented on our podcast that I co-host with Jerry, which will give some kind of insight of how I felt when I first listened, and then compared to now after I have a history with a lot of these albums. So it'll be kind of scrapbooky, kind of loose, but it should hopefully paint a full picture of his discography in a way that I am happy with. So this will be very different for the channel, so let me know if you're enjoying this kind of thing. I'll definitely do probably another one of these after. This is a daunting first one to do, considering he has 20-something albums that we're going to cover here. So here's a list of every single one we're going to cover here. We're not doing every single release that he's ever done, because that is way too much. Some of them I don't have too much to talk about, or they are mostly other versions of other songs, but we will be covering the majority. So the way this is going to work is we're going to break it out into probably 8 or 9 episodes, and they're going to be categorized by years. So this episode here is the intro, and it'll be 1999 through 2000. I won't be covering Tests formally as a re-listen, just because technically that is the first Microphones album, but it is mostly a compilation of other cassettes that he made from 1996 to 1998, and it is mostly sound experiments, as that's kind of how he started this musical project. It was more of a recording experiment using analog equipment in a studio. So there are some songs and ideas on there, but I do think those are better expressed on the first, I would say, debut studio album, which is Don't Wake Me Up from 1999. So that'll be the first album that we're covering today. Before we get into Don't Wake Me Up, I think I should do just a brief history on who Phil Elverum is. So he is a singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, production wizard from Anacortes, Washington, who started the Microphones back in 1996 as a recording experiment. I think his obsession with analog recording equipment and just recording in general fueled his first couple of cassette releases, where those mainly focused on songwriting in the form of recording equipment and all these weird little vague songs that come together, which is an incredibly interesting thing, especially, when we get to the Glow Part 2, the songwriting is so completely different than this kind of style. But After his start, he got picked up by K Records, and then Don't Wake Me Up is the first release on K Records and what I would kind of consider his first studio album. I know Tests is a compilation. There are a couple of great moments on Tests. There's a couple of songs that I do really enjoy. It's a solid record, but not one that you should dive into right away, as it is more of a experimental kind of recording album more than it is a actual songs and movements and ideas. So we start with Don't Wake Me Up. This was released August 24th, 1999 on K Records. It is 15 tracks in about 40 minutes. So this will be the first one we're listening to today. I do really like this record. I haven't listened to it in a while, so it'll be interesting to re-listen and get some updated thoughts here. It is interesting to kind of see, we'll see kind of the starting point of his style here, being honed in further from Tests, and we'll see how that evolves very quickly as he goes through the early 2000s here. So yeah, I think we can just jump in and give this one a listen. I love how even like right out the gate, it is just so the distortion is there and the movements are there and the nature themes are already coming in with the ocean, like the crazy drums at the end, kind of mimicking an ocean waves, already is just fantastic. I love the kind of builds in the beginning with those different crescendos and textures. I think texturally he is just consistently amazing. But even at this early stage, it's really just a fantastic like building of soundscapes. He sounds so young in these recordings here. I think he made this album when he was probably like 20-ish. So cool just hearing the mix of like 60s pop with just insane distortion. I still love how focused he is on the drums on this early stuff. I believe the drums is like the first instrument he really got into, and he's just like letting himself go crazy over these, which is just great. I love the recorded like distortion coming in through the drums. It has this 60s Beach Boy feel, but it's just covered up in this just wild distortion with this like little bit of 90s grunge entering. I think he's inspired a lot by like My Bloody Valentine and Stereo Lab. So just like the wall of sound that gets created through these and almost like shoegazy noise rock area here is just really satisfying. And it just sounds, the crunch and everything is just so satisfying. Just like the drones and dissonance he's able to create here are just great. It's just such a gorgeous build there. It's so interesting because you can hear this kind of sound in like microphones in 2020 and him kind of calling back to this era with these amazing just like droning sections. Here with Summer is a standout. What a forward thinking track, like even this early in his discography. Spoilers. The drums just sound massive. You can really hear like where those years of just like making sound experiments and with analog recording is like coming to life here, because I don't know how you get a drum to sound like that. It's like massive sounding. Forget how fun like these early albums are just to listen to before it gets like depressing and gloomy and like larger than life. These are just really fun records to listen to. The mix of just heavy distortion with those like really nice melodies over top are just, it's just like he feels so creatively free on even these early albums. What a just great mix of different things. The left ear's getting pummeled and the right ear just has this fantastic like distorted guitar. I also love how self like referential his discography is. I think going in order here, re-listening will really pick up on that. With I'll Be in the Air obviously going to have multiple important songs. We have another one here and then one on the Glow Part 2. So those kind of self-referential moments are really cool. A lot of this record has been more indie rock, kind of noise rock, but this kind of lo-fi feeling entering here is really nice. I think this is where most people will be more familiar with his sound, as I feel like a lot of people get in with the Glow Part 2. Oh, the textures are just so good. The radio static, the acoustic guitar, that distorted drone of the electric guitar. It feels so homemade, and there's just like a warming quality about all of it. It really feels like an art project, and that's just like a really cool thing. Just think all three, like I'll be in the air, you in the air, and the Glow Part 2 version is just like all great. Even with like the limitations on budget and equipment and everything, he's still able to make these songs just sound massive. More of that just like lo-fi coming in here again. Even one of like the sadder songs on this early album does not begin to touch what he's gonna do soon. The slacker rock part of this album is just really good. I don't think people talk about that nearly as much as they should. That's almost something you'll find on Mount Eerie, that those like vocal harmonies and rising. Those acoustic guitar parts are great. the first of many, many, many instrumental songs. That's a pleasant noise.
I heard a beautiful sound.
I love when he fades different songs in. It's such a unique way to do that. It's almost a hip hop sample, but used in a completely different way. I love how this like outro song sounds the most similar to the next album. It's a really nice way to kind of tie these two together. Just gorgeous vocal harmonies. Yeah, it's pretty wild that like Don't Wake Me Up is not one of my favorites in his catalog, but like even still, I really, really, really enjoy it. I love how this early in his career, he's really pulling with dissonance and distortion and mixing it with these electric and acoustic moments, loud and quiet, all these different great balancing things that he has throughout his discography. I think this is like the start of where, not the lore, but just kind of the continued idea stream that he does throughout his entire discography with like, I'll be in the air, you were in the air, and then you'll be in the air on the Glow Part 2. You get all these little references to his older work, and they all kind of tie together and make that song more impactful in the Glow Part 2, which is great. I think the mix of like 60s pop with more of this noise rock, shoegazy, My Bloody Valentine-esque production mixed in is really fantastic. The drones and the walls of sound he's able to create here sound so great. It's just crazy that this is like, you know, his first fully realized album that he's made, and he's already hitting these fantastic builds. Everything sounds so full and rich. The distortion is so crunchy and satisfying. I love, like, I think I'll Be in the Air, where the distortion underneath is so loud and menacing, but you have this really nice melody over top, creating a fantastic contrast. I love the other vocalist on this album as well. I think Mira is her name. I always loved the play between both of their voices on these earlier records. That does kind of go away after the first couple, but I do really enjoy it here. It's a really like fun record to listen to. I know Phil can kind of have this reputation for people that aren't like haven't gone through a lot of his music of being just like sad, depressing, heartbreaking music. But these early records are just a lot of fun to listen to. There's a lot of experiments going on. You can tell he's putting a lot of those chops from those early records and recording experiments to the test here, and they come out really well. But yeah, I mean, it's a really fantastic record. I think it does get overshadowed by a lot of his discography, but this does not mean that this one should be missed at all. I just really, really, really enjoy it still, even with what's coming next. I think the Don't Wake Me Up and It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water are probably the most similar, although I still think Don't Wake Me Up is the biggest outlier in the Microphone's discography compared to the soundscape of the rest of it. Because with It Was Hot, I think that starts the kind of the holy trilogy for a lot of Microphones fans here as we get into these next records. So yeah, overall though, Don't Wake Me Up is fantastic. It's not one I go back to too often, but I do really love the sound of it. I love the experiments, and I think having the full knowledge of his entire discography, I come back with a more widened lens into the ideas and experiments and how long he's been kind of doing these things. And I find I have a bigger appreciation for the record than when I first heard it. So very good, very good. But now it's time to get to the second album for this first episode. That'll be It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water from 2000. All right. Final album of episode 1. This is It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water, September 26th, 2000. This kind of starts, I mean, Don't Wake Me Up is a good album, as we've just seen. I do enjoy it, and I think I enjoy it a little bit more after returning to it. But I think this is where the really, really, really magical stuff kind of starts. This is kind of I don't know if it's an official trilogy. It kind of seems like it. This is the start of the trilogy that is It Was Hot, and then Glow Part 2, and then Mount Eerie. All those albums focusing on an element of nature. So we will be diving into water in this one, with fire being the Glow Part 2 next. I feel like a lot of like Phil-isms kind of start on this record. You start getting that like real analog tape recording sound with the more lo-fi elements. Is kind of like kaleidoscopic panning that I call it, where he puts so many weird different instruments in different channels and creates like an insane soundscape. One of his signature things that we'll be seeing a lot after this album. So that starts here as well. This is for me like where the run of just like insane albums really, really, really starts. I enjoyed this one like quite a bit. It took me a while to kind of warm up to it. I don't remember when I listened to this. I think it was quite a while into my deep dive, actually. I think I was getting into a lot of Mount Eerie stuff before I actually came back and listened to this for the first time. But I enjoy the like kind of summery, warm feeling of it a lot. I feel like this is one of the last albums that we get that, especially with the Glow Part 2 right after this, is very icy and cold and desolate for a lot of that runtime. So it's cool to hear kind of like warmer, more, I don't want to say happy, but uplifting sound compared to a lot of his other stuff. And I think this is where the nature metaphor kind of starts for a lot of his work as well, which is a main drawing point for me as well. I think his songwriting is incredible, and that kind of nature metaphor style that he really is known for starts here. I think a lot of his inspiration for that was Will Oldham, who is Bonnie Prince Billy. We'll hear more about Bonnie Prince Billy all the way in Microphones in 2020, but that'll be a long time from now. But yeah, this is, I would say, an album that you cannot miss in Phil's discography. I think it is an absolute must listen, especially if you are someone who loves the Glow Part 2 but hasn't dove into all of Phil's work yet. I think this is a great point to go to next. But yeah, I haven't listened to it in a while, so we're going to give it a re-listen and see what my thoughts are. Immediately the panning is here. It just does it for me. I'm a cheat code at this point. The subtle chord layering there is just gorgeous. Crazy how different his voice sounds on this record compared to the Glow Part 2 with only like a year difference. Still doing the kind of Beatles one channel vocal here too. Drums just sound so crisp in the mix. Like ringing percussion, I didn't even notice that before. That's so cool. This is where his production magic like really starts to come in. Fantastic opener. The pull is like a standout for sure. I think the front half of this album in general is just pretty flawless in my opinion. Love that. So drum forward still, which is great. Dual vocal thing is so cool too. God. I don't know why I find that so good. I just love with the sound of that.
Beneath as the water above me froze.
The evolution from a year from the last album is just really insane here.
Yes, I saw you in warm clothes.
The contrast of lyrics about like love and stuff on this album compared to the Heartbreak of the Glow Part 2 is great too. They really do just, the trilogy works really well sequencing wise. Oh, this is one of my favorites. This front half is so good. The police siren gets me every single time.
Would you like to leave? When I try to talk, it all just turns out to be. I'd like to understand.
This mix is so insane.
About why it seems so bad. Did somebody escape from everything? I know I'm weak. I know that I'm sad.
Oh, that's such a good track. All right, here we go.
The blow came down from the hills, followed by snow. Oh,
God, it's such a good intro.
I could feel far off the glow, and I made my way through September and the next month towards the glow.
Oh, the build is just so good. Just insane atmosphere. God, this is gorgeous.
I started to glow.
Bouncy ball drums. drumming is so good. I just love how drum forward the first two records are. These mixes are so insane. Just like things fading out, fading in, different recordings. Everything is just so dynamic. Underwater kind of sound coming in. Just wizardry, all this on analog tape, crazy. Yeah, I think the glow gets the first masterpiece of the series. There's a lot more where that came from going forward, but I think this is like the first true, like, just insanely wow moment in this discography. It is just so dynamic and rich, and the mix has so many cool things going on, so many little details and effects and layering happening. The vocals are fantastic. I love the songwriting here. His nature metaphor really comes out, and you start to really connect to him lyrically. At least I do at this point. I just love the like underwater effect, as it's like kind of like the narrative of the track physically goes underwater. It's just really, really, really fantastic. I love the glow metaphor of being like someone like giving you a light in your life, and just like this amazing, glowing, inexplainable feeling you get when you have that kind of relationship and love. And the next album will obviously see what happens when that light goes out, and it's not pretty. But this song is just so lush and gorgeous. It's an amazing 11 minutes. And I think just really listening back to it and paying attention to all the little details in the mix and everything, it only makes it that much better. So phenomenal.
Waited out past the wave swells, where we all floated hopeless. He sang about the sand,
This is such a fun follow-up.
where we could all touch our feet down. He held out his hand. Long live his words, all caught up on his own. He said someday the moon will reach out to the sun.
Love that song too. We'll be hearing more of Carl Blow next episode. That one's a lot of fun. Now we start getting crazy. It really is a distinguisher between the first half and the second half of the album. I think it does its job pretty well. Wasn't that fun? Oh man.
Feel on my waist. Your wet hand.
It's definitely the most like grungy song he's done so far.
Surprised we both survived.
Well, that was all over the place. He's still just as creatively free as the last album. This is such a cool instrumental, though. Oh, the guitars. Man, that's gorgeous. We got our first of unthinkable amounts of some things.
The foggy air around us was blinding. The foggy sea was loud behind it. Its foggy breath breathed its water into our lungs. And we oh, the blood.
Love a good field recording.
It's pulling out in tight toes and rising back in misty waves, forever churning up its boiling strength. The chest
He really goes off the deep end a couple of times on this album. I love it. I just love that scrapbooky homemade feeling you get from some of these guitar tones.
pulling a string.
So the one I listened to for this week was It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water, which was the one before the Glow Part 2, and I'm just going to call it the Glow Part 1 because that's what it is. It came out almost exactly a year before it. And just listening to it, you can tell that the Glow Part 2 is like such a glow up, no pun intended. It's kind of insane. This is like Section 80 to Good Kid Mad City levels of like growth in a year. Not to say that there aren't some great tracks in here. I think there are. I think it's just like you hear the ideas brewing in his head throughout this record, but they're not fully realized until you get to the Glow Part 2. But the pull is great. The opener, I think that's fantastic. Ice and Sand are also great. And then the Glow, which is an 11-minute track on this record, is also fantastic. It's definitely noisier. It's more raw. There's a lot of harsh noise on this record too. There's like a high frequencies in I think the Gleam that are just kind of painful to listen to. I didn't realize that the first Microphones record is more like a shoegaze slacker rock record than it is a folk record. So the folk didn't really kick in until 2001, which is definitely what I prefer from him. It's more scrapbooky. It's harder to get into, but there is a female vocalist that is on here quite a bit. We hear her on Map, I think, on the Glow Part 2, but I think that's it. So not sure what happened there, but I do like the duet on here. It's pretty great. But yeah, I think it's definitely a decent record. I would say it's definitely one to check out if you're just interested in like what became the Glow Part 2, because you have the Glow, you have the Gleam, and then you have Something, which makes sense on why the Glow Part 2, it's like, I think it's Something 1 and Something 2. The song titles when we reacted to that were very confusing.
Yeah.
But it makes sense now. Yeah, great record. It's definitely weird. It's not too replayable, but I'm glad I listened to it. And that's it. It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water. This album's really good. It's really, really good. I still think it does kind of get overshadowed by what follows it, but there's a lot of fantastic things going on here. There's a lot of the start of those things that I really do enjoy about him with the Nature Metaphor and the style of like kaleidoscopic mixing and all these different things. Yeah, just the first half of this album is absolutely fantastic. I think just like track 1 through 5 is absolutely perfect all the way through. The second half definitely gets a little bit more rocky, but it also opens up a lot more experimentation and different sounds and things, which is entertaining to listen to. I just don't think it has the really, really nice put together cohesion of the front half. But I think one thing that I'm like majorly drawn to from Phil is just like the imperfectionism, I want to call it, that he does. I think because you're on analog recording, it's hard to kind of like re-record and do all these things. So you get these little kind of, not mistakes, but just unique little things that you wouldn't usually hear in a mix of a song that turn out just really, really well. I don't really like when things are too buttoned up and too perfect and shiny and packaged, unless it's like a certain genre that fits that. But I just really enjoy the kind of scrapbooky feel that he starts to really take as his style going forward here. But yeah, it's a phenomenal record. The Glow being an absolute masterpiece. It's fantastic. The Pull as well, I think is a good second track for me after the Glow. But yeah, a lot of good stuff happening here. I love the nature symbolism with water kind of being the central theme here. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for this first episode with these first two records. Next episode is a big one. We're going to do years 2001 through 2003. So it's going to include the Glow Part 2, Blood, Song Islands, Little Bird Flies into a Big Black Cloud, and Mount Eerie in that video. So it's going to be a bigger one. We'll probably spend the most of our time on the Glow Part 2 and Mount Eerie, but I wanted to include those compilations and other things in the middle because they're still pretty good and pretty interesting. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Make sure to subscribe if you want to stick along with the series. I should be putting them out hopefully every couple of weeks. So hopefully there isn't too many huge gaps with these. Do take a lot more time to edit. So let me know if you're rocking with this. I think it's a cool format for me to kind of just go through the whole discography this way instead of just doing a kind of video essay recap video. I like to re-experience these things as we go here. So yeah, until next time.